Meatloaf might be the most emotionally complicated dish in America. For some people, it's like optimal prime comfort food, and for others, it's pretty much a terrorist attack that their parents committed once a week until they moved out.
Oh, meatloaf.
And that's what we're talking about today. Meatloaf has been done dirty for decades, not because it sucks, but because people stopped trying. So today, we're fixing that. This is not like a fancy chefy version of meatloaf for fanciness' sake. This is meatloaf the way that I think it should be done, coming from a guy who never really liked meatloaf to begin with. Now I do. Nice little arc there. This version poops on anything Meemaw used to make. Respectfully. We're breaking down meatloaf by the meat mixture, the sauce or the glaze, and of course sides. We gotta talk about sides because meatloaf isn't just, you know, the loaf. It's a system. If one part breaks, the whole thing collapses. Everything's gotta be prime. And at the end of the video, I'm gonna show you my favorite way to use your leftover meatloaf. This version of day 2 meatloaf might even be better than day 1. You'll be the judge of that. So even if you're like me and used to hate and despise and be basically scared of meatloaf as a kid, by the end of this video, there is a 92.318 repeating % chance you're gonna dig it. You will join us meatloaf enjoyers. Let us begin. For meatloaf, I feel that it makes sense to start with the loaf. So I basically treat the meatloaf like a giant meatball. Listen, turkey meatballs are good and fine. They definitely have a place in the world, but 90% of the time I'm using beef and pork, no turkey. So that's what we got here today. I just went ahead and I ground these in my meat grinder on like the medium coarse setting here. It's 50% pork, 50% beef. The beef is definitely on the leaner side, right? I did not use like a chuck roast or something fattier like that. But the pork is pork shoulder, so that's gonna carry most of the fat and the flavor in this loaf. And guys, yeah, I ground these myself. I was feeling a little extra. I was feeling a little spicy, so I did it. Do you have to do that? Absolutely not. It is so not necessary. Go buy your pork, your beef from the grocery store pre-ground. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? You're not lazy for doing that.
Perfect meatloaf.
To make my meatloaf, I like to use what's called a panade. I do the same thing with my meatballs. It's basically a mixture of bread, aromatics, some eggs, and other things that really makes the loaf itself super tender and moist, right? We want our loaf to slice nicely, but we also want it to, you know, tremble in fear and fall apart on us just from one look, just from one gaze, one simple gaze. The last thing is that I borrowed one small element from this recipe from Kenji Lopez Alt in his recipe on Serious Eats for meatloaf. Now this is real stock, right? There's gelatin in the stock. I believe this is a chicken and pork stock. Can also be a beef stock. So there's natural gelatin in here, but he uses packaged gelatin to bolster this so that once the loaf sets, it holds together a little nicer. It adds a nice glossy texture. It's a really cool move. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So let's get loafing. First things first, we're just gonna bloom our gelatin by pouring it directly over the stock. This is just one pack. Cool. We're just gonna set that aside. We're gonna go medium heat, cast iron. We're gonna drop in our butter, a little neutral oil. Now we're gonna hit in our mushrooms, just chopped up mushrooms. The onion, le céleri, carotte, and a little bit of garlic. I, of course, am gonna hit this with some BP, black pepper, and a healthy pinch of kosher to really help sweat these vegetables down. Our main goal here is to remove moisture from these vegetables. We wanna cook these down until they're pretty much jammy. We're concentrating their flavor and making it so our meatloaf isn't sloppy. You will know when this is done, when the liquid kind of stops leaching out of the vegetables. Oh, this right here, we need that gone. These vegetables have released most of their moisture. We're pretty much done here. The only stuff left is sizzling fat and nice jammy veg. These are sweated down without much color, just what we're going for. All right, so into a food processor goes our bread. This is just some sourdough from my freezer that I literally just cubed up. Could be any bread. We're gonna give that a head start, actually. We're gonna blitz that for about 10 seconds. Behold, breadcrumbs. Now for the rest of the stuff. We have our heavy cream. That just helps things kind of hold on to moisture, adds a bit of like flavor. 2 eggotry, whole eggs. Our bloomed beef stock, look at that. I'm sorry, not beef stock. This could be beef stock, chicken and pork stock. A Parmigiano Reggiano for that umami factor. I know, it's a little like fancy, right? I'm not sure how many Mimas have parm in their fridge, but who knows? You know, it's 2026. Maybe they do. Parsley, a little bit of thyme, a nice healthy pinch of kosher salt, couple of cracks of the BP. You already know. And all of our cooked down vegetable mixture. The mushrooms, the carrot, onion, celery. It's basically mirepoix with a little umami from the mushroom and then garlic. Get down there. That itself tastes really good. Now we're gonna blitz this up till it's smooth. Beautiful. All right, so we're going for like a soupier mix, something that looks like this, right? I don't wanna say soupy, but almost like a liquidy paste, which sounds gnarly, but this is going to impart incredible flavor and texture to our meatloaf. Now into a large bowl goes our pork and beef, 1 pound each. This recipe makes more than enough panade. I like to start with about 1/3, end up using around 2/3 and having another extra third for leftovers, but I guess, you know, I'd rather have too much than too little. So a little bit of that goes in. That's a good start. I basically kind of almost like to treat this meat almost like a dough, right? So just keep mushing about until it looks nice and mixed to you, until you think like the pork and the beef are kind of dispersed evenly, and you have a tacky mixture. This is why we don't need to put it into the food processor itself. I'm not really worried about crazy emulsification here, right? We're not making sausage. It's not that tacky. I'm not doing anything. I'm slapping it into my grooves of my fingers here. It should stay, but as you can see, it falls. That's good. It's a good thing. We like that. This recipe makes a lot of panade. I like to pop it in a deli, label it up, and then freeze it, and it totally will work when you thaw it out for your next batch of meatloaf and or meatballs and or, I don't know, whatever you want to do to this. Fold it into dough, get crazy, get wild. First, we go sheet tray, mini sheet tray with a rack. Why? Because we are going to put our loaf pan on top, and air and heat is gonna be able to get under it easier, and also catch drippings if there's any grease that splatters out or anything. This is a non-stick loaf pan. Sometimes I see this meatloaf in general just be made in like a 9x13 casserole dish. It's not as tall, it's not as cool looking. It gives like sad cafeteria food. This gives, I don't know, 1950s housewife, but to me it's more appetizing. I just got some beef tallow here. This can be anything. Now, to fill. I like to start by scooping in a couple small amounts to really ensure that we're packing this down and there's no air pockets, air bubbles in our beautiful loaf here. It's almost kind of like you're making pate for charcuterie or something like that. Boom, bop, bow. So I'm just gonna mash that in, really ensure the corners are kind of worked through. It's also very nice to use your hands for this. Totally go ahead, get your skin mittens in there. It might be a little easier. It's kind of under this shallow dish here, that's great. Really make sure it's nice and smooth. Then lastly, kind of knock it down, really make sure it's compact. That is our loaf, our loafed meat, our meatloaf, the God loaf. One other thing I wanted to add, if you recall in our Euro video, we used an ingredient called tripolyphosphate. What that does is it kind of like locks in moisture. If you have some left over from that recipe, if you bought it, you could actually add a little bit in this. I forget the weight, I think it's like 0.2 or 0.3. Don't quote me on that. I'll leave you just directions below or whatever if you want, or in the recipe if you want to try it. But yeah, it could be a good move. I'm not gonna do it because we have our panade and it's just so, I don't think necessary, but if you have some left over, little cool thing you can do there. All right, 350, 1 hour. Sleep tight, my love. Well, that's in the oven. Let's talk a little bit of loaf history. Meatloaf isn't one recipe, it's a mindset. You take minced meat, mix it with a binder, shape it, cook it. That's really the whole philosophy, not too complicated. They're literally doing construction right outside of my window, so I apologize. Sick, perfect timing, awesome. Thank you for making a new garage outside my window. It's not even my garage. I park on the street. Just a meatloaf groveling peasant, and proud of it. Before meatloaf even came near an American dinner table, the Romans put their mark on it. In their version, minced meat got woven into grain and wine. It was then shaped and cooked. This is kind of basically the proto-meatloaf. There might be a fossil of this like it somewhere near Mount Vesuvius, you never know. Sick. The modern American meatloaf, you know, loaf pan, oven baked, weeknight dinner we all know and feared.
I don't like your mother's meatloaf.
That really came together in the late 1800s when meat grinders became more popular and cookbooks became more prevalent. Then the mid 20th century came around, and that era really solidified the sacred loafed meat sort of in carbonite.
Cultural carbonite.
The Great Depression turned meatloaf into a survival strategy, right? How do we feed a family of 5 with 1 pound of meat? Then you're gonna fast forward to World War II and it's much the same energy. Rations were a thing. People were trying to eat and consume less in the country for the war effort, so meatloaf was perfect. Then the 1950s rolls around, right? White picket fence, post-World War II, Leave It to Beaver era.
Kool-Aid, Kool-Aid, a 5-cent package makes 2 quarts of...
So cookbooks like Betty Crocker and American diners putting meatloaf and mash on the menu really sort of solidified the dish's identity as shorthand for American comfort food. Warm, filling, affordable, and just strange enough to traumatize an entire generation of children. But we're here to fix that. We're gonna make a loaf to be proud of. We gotta talk about the glaze, right? Not to glaze the glaze, but this is a pretty good glaze. It's actually largely inspired by my buddy chef Ryan Pfeiffer. He used to be the chef at Blackbird here in Chicago before it closed down. I have a really great video from a few years back during the pandemic with him. You should go check it out. He's the man. He's a very talented cook. Okay, what do we got? Well, the thing about like glaze and sauce when it comes to meatloaf is that most people straight up just go for the ketchup, right? And that's good and fine, but it's really not. To me, it's just kind of lazy. Just flatten ketchup all over your meatloaf is just kind of, I don't know, kind of whack. I feel like we can do better. I know we can. Some people sometimes put barbecue sauce or a mixture of ketchup and barbecue sauce, which is...
I'll like some ketchup.
To kind of combat that kind of simplicity, we're gonna pump a lot more umami and a lot more tangy acid for that acid punch into our meatloaf, right? This is gonna basically be like a reduced down scissor. It's gonna brush really nicely over the loaf. We want our meatloaf to be shiny and enticing. We want it to look like it's got a great tan, like it just came back from Cabo circa 2008, you know, with the braids. This is mad simple. All we're gonna do is add things to a pot and reduce it down until it's a nice consistency. All right, high heat, saucier. I like to use something wide so that this evaporates faster. After all, we do be reducing. We're gonna go in with all of our sherry vinegar, followed by our maple sizzurp. This is the sugar component. A bit of soy sauce for color and umami and salt. Just because I feel like it's the right thing to do. Maybe just a little bit of chup. You guys know, I'm a little bit of a ketchup hater, but I'm gonna do my best here. And now we can give that a shwisky poo and basically just reduce this down until it's got a nice consistency. I highly recommend opening a window for this or turning your hood vent down if you have one, because it's about to get real acidic in here. It definitely looks reduced, but it still looks pretty liquidy, but I assure you, as this cools, it will thicken. It's the sugar and the maple syrup. We're just gonna finish this off with a little bit of fish sauce, right? If you can taste the fish sauce, you've gone too far. I'm gonna start there. We're gonna whisk that around. I know some of you guys might be eye rolling at the fish sauce here, like, ooh, just like a, you know, dumb esoteric chefy ingredient for no reason, but in the glaze, we're seasoning this. It's adding salt and umami. The umami plays really well with the savory sherry vinegar glaze and plays well with beef. And what's our meatloaf? Well, genetically, it's half beef. Goes nice with pork too, but you get it. This is looking a little thin right now, but as it cools, it's gonna thicken hard. All that sugar from that maple syrup is gonna kind of like cool down. It's gonna be almost like a caramely vinegar glazed thing. Ooh. Oh yeah. Ooh. All right, look at that. See all that juice? We want to let this rest just like any other piece of meat out of the oven to kind of let some of this juice get reabsorbed in the meatloaf. Of course, a lot of this won't. Most of it won't actually, but gotta let this thing rest for a second here. All right, we're gonna plop this onto a wire rack, presentation side up. Oh yeah, very nice. Let's glaze this thing. So obviously the bottom side is already browned, so we're not gonna worry about that, but we are going to just kind of, oops, glaze it up. Now this loaf is nice and hot, so a lot of this glaze is gonna slide off. However, we can bat that by basting it as it cooks. It's already a nice color. Really make sure to get every little nook and cranny. I like to kind of make sure there's not too much sitting at the top so it doesn't like burn. I recommend adding a little bit of water to the tray here. Helps keeps things from burning. Now this goes into a ripping hot oven until it's nice and caramelized. What do we got here? What do we got here? Ooh, a nice glazed loaf. Nice. Shiny, glossy, dark brown. It just needs to, ooh, nice. All right, we're gonna let this cool down slightly. Let's talk sides. I think it's probably illegal in the continental US to serve meatloaf without mashed potatoes. Now, mashed potatoes, they can be as complicated or as simple as you want, right? You can keep the skin on it, mash them all up, butter, salt, milk, boom, rustic mash. On the other end of that spectrum, you got, you know, Robuchon potatoes where you cook the potatoes perfectly and you season them perfectly with salt and white pepper so that you do not see the pepper. And then you pass them through a sieve, a tamis. My Christ, is that the most like horrible prep task ever. Tamis, they're cool, they're fun, but we're not doing that. The idea here is a mashed potato that feels special, but it's like, you know, middle to low effort. At the end of the day, we're mashing potatoes here with a ricer, so it's called that mid-effort, right? We're going for kind of like an herby garlic rustic mash because we're not really worried about the cut on, you know, our herbs or anything like that. As long as it's seasoned and it tastes good and it looks nice, it will suffice. Put me on the Mount Rushmore next to see how smooth Tupac, Rakim. Need to reevaluate things with myself, with my life, with my loved ones. All right, we gotta bring this to a boil. That's high heat. Dutch oven with cold water and our potatoes in. I'm gonna add a nice healthy pinch or two of kosher salt. We're gonna bring this up to a boil and cook these things until they're fork tender. These need to be soft and tender and squashable. To a small sauce pot, we're gonna hit it with our unsalted butter, parsley, thyme, garlic. A lot of garlic. This is garlic mash after all. Just gonna add a little bit of milk. This can be milk, cream. I'll probably add more too. And of course, pinch of kosher salt. Or two. You know what, guys? I want that VP as well. Don't quote me on that, but we need that. We're just gonna stir this together till it melts, you know, melted butter, dairy, herb mixture, garlic. Already smells good. What do we got here? What do we got here? Let's take one of these. So we have our tater. There is basically no resistance in this here potato, which is exactly what we want. The steam is coming deep from within each of these potatoes, so the more you can kind of let them steam off and sit and dry out, the better. Nobody wants water in their mashed potatoes, right? Dry potatoes are good potatoes. We got ourselves a nifty potato ricer. It's basically like a massive garlic press. Gonna take our tater, load it up, and whoa. That was very satisfying because they're the perfect size. Look at this. Didn't even mean to do that. Now I'm just gonna take in about half of my garlicky mixture here. I actually like to use a rice spoon for this. You can get these at Asian markets for like, you know, like $3. I'm just gonna give that a mixy poo here. So delicious and garlicky smelling. Look at that, these taters just take on this dairy so well. All right, the remaining, and we will mix again. Now, we could stop here, and that would be good and fine. But if we scoop these bad boys into a dish, smooth out that top a wee bit, just before dimpling the top and finishing with a little hard cheese, you can turn something ordinary into extraordinary. Isn't that cute? Look at that. Look how special that is. You can finish this with some olive oil, more melted butter, or just leave it as is. So for our second and final side, this is kind of an upgraded frozen peas and carrots from the freezer situation. Ain't nothing wrong with freezer bag peas and carrots, but at the same time, kind of in spirit of what we're doing here, we're gonna try to elevate things. Trying to say that as non-douchey as possible. But yeah, a couple things I want to talk about here. One, these two guys here. Not only are we gonna do peas and carrots, but we're also gonna do pearl onions. Now these are pearl onions. You've definitely seen them in the store. Maybe you've been like, whoa, cute little mini onions. Like what the hell does anyone ever actually do with those? You basically just cut off the little nub at the top, or depending on your perspective, the bottom of the onion. I think it is the bottom of the onion. Then you're just gonna blanch it in boiling water for a couple of minutes just to kind of loosen that skin up, shock it in an ice bath, and then they kind of like pop out of their skins, right? And when they're out of their skins and they're blanched, they're pretty much cooked, almost par cooked, and this is what you're left with. Because we're gonna be glazing our vegetables, it's a popular word today. I actually went ahead and did the same thing with the carrots here. I cut them to size to be similar in size to these small pearl onions here. And then I also par-cooked them by blanching them off in some boiling water, shocking them on an ice bath, kind of just giving them a head start cooking so that when we glaze these, everything's gonna be on the same page and things are gonna cook at the same rate. If you were to just kind of like throw these carrots and onions in the same pot, not par-baked, bad things would happen. I don't think it would turn out too nice. Speaking of, here I just have some good old parchment paper. What we're gonna do here is fold this once, fold this twice, fill in the blank, keep going around to create almost a paper airplane that is not in a paper airplane, rather a cartouche in French, which I believe roughly translate to douche parachute. Anyone who speaks French, correct me in the comments. Anyways, once you're at this stage here, I'm just gonna kind of give it a little U, and I'm gonna snip the end, and we're left with, oh, you know what, I'm dumb. I'm a dumb guy. Kind of forgot this part here. I was just kind of shooting from the hip. Take your vessel, pop it down. Can do our best to kind of pre-measure this, so if this is the middle, use my thumb as a marker, and see how we do with that. Ooh, now you have a paper lid, or a cartouche, as they would call it in French. This cartouche is wunderbar because it allows for some evaporation while you cook. You put a lid on, there's not really any evaporation going besides the steam that can sneak out the sides. This way, we allow things to reduce, but at a slow and controlled rate. Let me show you. Let me show you. Oh yeah, let's get into it, guys. Let's start. Let's get into it. All right, we're gonna go medium heat, a nice little high-sided pan. We're gonna go in with the carrots, pearl onion. Whoa, not the diaper. I'm gonna sprinkle sugar all over the veg, drop in some beer, and add enough water to the pan to come up to like the shoulders of the veg, right? Mix that around a little bit, make sure the sugar's worked into the water, and cool. We can place the cartouche on top and bring that to a simmer. I haven't forgotten about the peas, we're gonna add these later. So what this cartouche does, it slows the rate of evaporation while still allowing, obviously, steam to get through. Therefore, kind of like slowly cooking our vegetables, making sure they're cooked, making sure that sugar melts in with the butter and the water, and then it kind of sticks to the exterior of the vegetables and caramelizes, and we're gonna be left with some pretty good looking vegetables. Give it a little while. This is gonna take, I don't know, anywhere from like 15 to 25 minutes, it just depends. Like medium heat, low medium heat. So you can see kind of what's going on under the hood here. Just bubbling vegetables, bubbling away. Pop that back on. So right now, this cartouche is kind of keeping moisture in and it's allowing our sugar to kind of caramelize slowly without burning and charring completely, right? Because look, you know, the sugar in the butter is pretty much making a caramel. Look at that right here. You can see that the color change in these vegetables here. These are proper glazed vegetables right now. Okay, so I'm gonna cut the heat. We can now add in our peas. Look at that. Look how pretty that is. So now we got carrots and peas essentially, just a little more elegant. All right, we got our meatloaf cooked and our sides done. I think it's time we slice into the loaf. Yo, but before we do so, look at this thing. Yo. How is this thing not called a meat brick? Like a meat box, meat pack. I would build a cabin with this. Brick cabin. All right, let's get a little crosseroni. See what we're working with here? Oh, yeah. That color on the outside, I gotta say, it's enticing. Slice is really nice. Obviously a lot easier when it's cooled off. This be our loaf. Let's plate it up. It literally does look like American, like pate, like charcuterie. All right. So here we go. Here's everything. We got our meatloaf sliced up, kept some of it solid because you never know if you're gonna eat it, and it's best to kind of save this whole instead of sliced. It oxidizes slower, stays better longer. Then we have our glazed vegetables. Look at that, all nice and pretty with the carrots. And our mashed potato gratin, right? Very nice. I kind of wanna, this is looking a little, yeah, I'm gonna make this a little nicer. Oh, sorry, why not, right? Why not? I'm gonna layer some of these vegetables on the side. You know, serving this family style like this is a great idea, great move if you're serving, obviously, a number of guests. You can also do it like this, make it look a little nicer. Yeah. Look at that, that's kind of nice. I'm glad we did that. I think for the finishing touch here, just a little bit more glaze down the center. Oh yeah. Oh man, this is looking very mid-century. As much as I don't want to like cut into this thing because it looks so glorious, let's plate it up. See what I mean? It just looks a little nicer. You still got that creamy bottom, but then you get that like nice crispy, that's a word, crispy top. Before I lay down my piece, I'm gonna pop some of this glaze on the plate. Just place this piece right here in it. Some of the vegetables, maybe just a little more gloss. Ta-da! Meatloaf, baby! But hopefully a little more interesting. I'm gonna do a little bit of these mashed potatoes, a little loaf. Why not? Maybe a carrot. Dude, just look at that bite. That's a nice one. Just because we're gonna go maximalist here. Now, this is loaf that I would not mind serving to friends or family at like a modern dinner party. But it still has like 1950s energy, you know? It still tastes and feels like home, like love. Like, I don't know why I always think of Jimmy Neutron's mom whenever I think of like 1950s housewife. Listen, I'm a married man, but Miss Neutron can give me a very long hug if she'd like to. I'd accept that.
Phil never looked so good.
Jimmy Neutron's mom? Christ. It's been such a long day of meatloaf with like a fun, long, tasty day, and to end on Jimmy Neutron's mom like that just really brings it all home. Try this. It's fun, it's good, it's classic. I think you guys are really gonna dig it. I'm gonna eat this with my mouth whole. And let me know in the comments too, what is your all-time favorite comfort food? No matter what country you're from, how old you are, I wanna know. Maybe we'll make it. Okay. Now this is classic, this is yummy, this is tasty. We love this, I love this enough to make a video out of it. But let me show you a super fun and different way to use meatloaf for your leftovers so you're not eating this 3 days in a row. Oh yeah, dude. Salutations. Because, I mean, after all, isn't a meatloaf just one giant meatball? You tell me. Thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you liked it, sub to the channel if you're new to the channel, cop some merch and or support the Patreon, aka the grocery fund if you are able. It helps me make the videos and do literally everything. I would appreciate if you could do that, but if not, no worries. Come say what's good in Discord. We're cooling and chatting. Cool little community over there, you know? There's a bunch of like-minded people who like to cook and talk about food and nerd out in general, so come say what's good, introduce yourself. That is all I got for you today, so until next we meet. Loaf down. Loaf hard. Loaf long and prosper. I've never even seen an episode of Star Trek ever. What am I doing? What am I saying? Who am I?